Hello, and welcome to Face the Podcast, the family and children's entertainers podcast, where we talk to entertainers about what they do and how they do it. My name is Gordon Drayson, a professional children's entertainer, and my guest on this episode is the wonderful Ian Adair. Now, if you've been around magic for any length of time, you will definitely know that name. Ian is the author of hundreds of books, a lot of them on children's magic and ideas in general. He's got a lot of Dove magic encyclopedias, and I talked to Ian about so many things that we actually have to change this episode into 2 episodes. So this is part 1. He had so much to say that we couldn't get it all into 1 episode. So in part 1, I talked to him about his first ever children's show when he was only 12 years of age, how he became the youngest ever member of the Kilmanok Magic Circle. As we all know, he joined the Supreme Magic Company and was there for many, many years, seeing a lot of his ideas being turned into products. We also talk about live animals in the show. So, let's get straight to it and welcome our guest, Ian Adair. Hello, Ian. How lovely to see you.
Hello there, Gordon. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much for spending time talking to me and all of our listeners. You are a legend in children's magic. Now, I know this has been said before, but you are the sort of person that pretty much every magician who's been doing magic for any period of time will know. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's very nice of you. You're flattering me very much so. I just look upon myself as an ideas man who deals with all branches of magic, but children's magic was at the fore. It was something that I pursued all of my magical life, and I'm now 82. Yes, I agree with what you say.
Okay,
if that is the case.
Perfect. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Now, how did you get started in your magic career?
Well, that's interesting because there's no one else in the family at the time, well, any time, who were in magic or show business. Not then. My brother was later on, but that much later. And so, I got a Christmas present from my granny, my grandmother, and I wondered what it was, and I unwrapped it like all the other presents, and inside was a box of magic. It's actually called a cabinet of magic, believe it or not. And here it is here. It's called the Ernest Sewell or Sewell Cabinet of Conjuring. It's a little tiny box, and I think it costs 7 and 6pence, which is about 40p today. But inside there was about 15 different tricks. Not children's magic tricks, of course, but tricks that you could do as a boy. And so that's really what started me off. That little box of magic. Later on, maybe 6 months later, I got a larger model, which was Ernest Sewell. That was the boxes of magic on in the toy shops in these days. So, they were available. No plastic items in there, no metal or woodwork, all paper card and things like that, but marvelous. Now, most children chuck them away after Christmas, or they take 1 or 2 things out and the rest of it gets thrown away. Not me. I was really intrigued by this box of magic, so I went to the library to see if they had anything in the children's section on magic, conjuring. And I asked the girl, she said, well, I don't really know, but it'll be in pastimes. So I went there and I found this book here. This is the very book called The Boy's Book of Conjuring. Now, I was only 5 or 6 years of age then. And my reading wasn't that great. And there was about 300 pages in this book with lots of pictures and photographs of old props. When I say props, I mean things like the appearing cane. How can you make an appearing cane? even a grown-up, how can he make it? The vanishing cage with a budgie or a canary inside. It's all explained in here. So it was really a book of explanations rather than making up tricks. Although there was a few tricks in there, card tricks and that really intrigued me. But that book was very good. Then I had the Foyles books, which came out at £0.50 each. One, both by Wilfred Johnson, one on card magic, one on conjuring. In the conjuring one was the cups and balls, and I always wanted to learn that, but of course that took time and took years, and I got the goblets, a nice set of goblets in the end, but Bertini ones. Then I've got the books beside the Will Dexter's book called Everybody's Book of Magic. That was in the shops at 7 and 6pence, a hardbound book full of magic stuff and stories all about magicians. I got to know Will later in years and actually published one of his books before he passed away. The last book I got was the most easiest to read. It was called Magic for All by Bob Dunn, and all the book contained was pictures and illustrations of all the tricks, like a cartoon style all the way through. So that book was very easy to read, and there was about 150 items in there. So all that, the box of magic plus the books, really started me off.
So you had quite a busy childhood there, going through all of these books and things, and all thanks to your grandma originally.
Well, that's right, and she did live to see me do some magic on platform at sort of scout evening sort of events. You know, I was a scout, and so free parents' evenings and all that. So she did see that, but my father unfortunately didn't see me do magic because he went blind very early in his life. He wasn't born blind, but he did have an accident, and he was blind and died at a very young age. So yes, that's right. So it was a busy time, and I learned how to read more from the magic books than I did from school, believe it or not.
So, I mean, what do you think it was that captured your imagination right from the first box of magic? You were sort of, you were looking through, and was it that you could do something that other people couldn't, or was it the fact that you had a secret or something else?
Well, I couldn't dance, I couldn't sing, I couldn't really tell funny jokes. And a lot of the boys, especially the boys at school, were very good at sports. Well, I was dreadful at sports. I really was. At our school, we had rugby and cricket. It wasn't football or anything. And we had to take what we had. You know, it was cricket was a terrible game for me, walking up and down and then throwing the ball and then picking it up. I hated that. But anyway, I was intrigued by the fact that I could do something a little bit different. When I showed people a trick and they said, "Oh, you're clever," I really liked it. I thought, this is really good. In those days, it was trying to fool the public rather than entertain them. And of course, we all know today that when we're doing shows, whether it's children's shows or adult shows or close-up, they're not only got to be puzzling and baffling, the tricks, that is, or the routines, but you've got to have an entertainment basis there. You've got to be entertaining to make it work. Yes, you've got to be entertaining.
Oh, I totally agree. And this is an entertainment art form, so entertainment should be, right up there with the magic, I think.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And there's no way about it. I've seen lots of youngsters today doing tricks, flourishes with cards and juggling up. And I said, well, you've shown me that. Show me a trick. Oh, I can't do you a trick, but I can show you how I can show you the pass. I said, I don't want to see the pass.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference actually with children who are getting into magic today. They're very much watching YouTube and videos and just learning moves with cards that, there's no tricks. It's just a move they've learned. They haven't learned how to entertain with it.
No, it's really flourishes and shuffles and splitting the pack with the fingers into 3 or 4 portions.
Yeah.
I never did any of that. But of course, in my day, there was no videos, no YouTube, no internet, no nothing like that. So we couldn't say, let's go on the internet. They're exposing some tricks. We never dream of exposing tricks anyway. But it was different in these days. But we got by, and that's what we accepted. And there was lots of things in the advertised in the comics for magic dealers such as Elliston's and Gamages and Hamleys, places like that you could contact. So you can go further from just your box of magic.
Right, we will come back to dealers because I know that's a huge part of your life. But let's just move on a little tiny bit. So you joined the Kilmanok Magic Circle. So you were living in Scotland at the time?
Yes, I was living in Scotland right till I was about 19. And I was born in Kilmanock, Ayrshire, the home of where Johnny Walker's whiskey was made. The factory was there. When you opened the windows, you could smell the fresh air of whiskey. Yes, the Kilmanock KMC, it was called. I tried to get into it when I was 12. And I was told that, no, 18 in those days, no junior clubs or junior sections in those days. You had to be 18. So I persevered and I persevered. One or two of the members saw me do a charity show or a church show. And then, the president, Bill Milligan, he was called, he became one of my first mentors before others. He contacted me, said, well, we invite you to come along to one of our meetings. Bring along 1 or 2 items and show the boys what you can do. So I brought along some items, including the wine and water trick, where you pour the water, then the wine, then the water. And then they all came back to a chemical type trick. And they thought I was really very good. So I joined the KMC when I was 13, the youngest member of that society. And when I left to come to Devon later on, they made me an honorary member. So it is still my first and beloved club, really. I owe a lot to them. And Bill Milligan was a mentor to me in those days.
So he sort of took you under his wing, did he? And sort of nurtured you?
He certainly did. He was a school teacher by profession, but a very clever magician, very good creative magic. And he left and emigrated to Australia. And he carried on teaching, but he had his own TV series in Australia with Benny the Bear. Now, it wasn't a copy of Sooty, but it was Sooty, really, but not a teddy bear with black ears. And it was called Benny. And every week it was on Australian television with Benny the Bear. And it became very popular. Of course, I never saw the programs. There were no videos either in those days. But he did very well. Sadly, he's passed away 5 years ago. But he did manage to come over and see me later in years when he had a visit to the UK with his children.
So were you doing children's shows or sort of public shows at the sort of time that you joined the Kilmanok Magic Circle?
Well, my first children's show really was when I was 12 years of age. Now that's ridiculous. A child doing a magic show for children, because you would think would take the mickey out of you, wouldn't they? He's only one of us. You've got no authority, no respect, but I did. And I was doing things like I got a trick called soft soap. I guess you know it, with the carton of soap powder. You put the dirty silks inside, they come out clean. And I thought that's a great thing for doing in front of children. It's not really a children's trick, it's a sucker trick, but it did go down very well. Yeah, I was starting to get interested in because there was no cabaret performances around my area, and we had one theatre in the town, and it was all sort of booked up by plays, Agatha Christie plays and theatre productions, and you had to have an agent and all that sort of thing. So I was doing shows. And I put a little advert in our local Kilmanock Standard newspaper. In those days, it was a huge paper, not the size it is today, and just the wanted, for sale adverts and services, and I was there as magic man at your parties. I didn't put children's entertainment, but I did say children's parties.
And were you known as...
We got a guinea in these days. That's £1, 1 shilling.
Okay.
That was the fee.
Wow. And that was for how long did you do? What was the length of your performance?
That was 1 hour in these days, not 45 minutes like a lot of children's entertainers do today.
Yeah, no, I'm an hour. I do a 45-minute show if it's 3 and 4-year-olds, because I think that's about right for that age group. But above that, I do an hour.
I quite agree with you there. A lot of children's entertainers don't tackle children at 3 and 4. They say, no, I don't do that. 5 upwards. Well, they're missing out on a lot of shows. Not only that, yes, you've got to change your patter. You've got to change the effects routines that you're using, and you've got to use words that are easy for them to understand. But it can be done, and it's been done by many magicians. And there's a lot of nursery schools and play schools that book you at Christmas and all that sort of thing. They're missing out.
I totally agree. They're some of my favorite shows. I do a lot of story type magic for them because I find that works really well because they're used to stories at that age.
Yes, that's right. Story magic. Way back then, we get into sucker tricks a lot. But someone told me, one of my mentors, you're doing too many sucker tricks in the one program, the one show. Cut them out. You don't want to be the clever dick all the time. Don't play down on the children all the time. Let them be part of the magic and be be as good as you sometimes.
Yeah, I think it has much more of an effect on children if they're the ones that do the magic. I mean, I produce a bunny rabbit at the end of my show. It's something I've been doing for a long time, and there's I don't think there's many people who do it anymore, but it is one of the things that gets remembered, and it's the birthday child or the special person who comes to help who gets to make that. And I've had people come back to me sort of, early 20s who've said, you came to my birthday party and I made a bunny rabbit at the show, and they remember that. It's a moment in history that stays with them.
Well, Gordon, I met a lady the other day. She's about 35. She's a little girl of 3, and she said, I remember you, Mr. Magic, doing my party when I was 3, and can I get you from my child? I said, no, I've retired now. But no, that's what it's like. But I get people stopping and said, you did my party, or my child is now 44, and he still remembers that time he produced the rabbit. And it's very sad that some places don't allow rabbits to be used in shows these days, but it was a feature of my show because I always said, and we took bookings on the phone rather than there was no internet. I said, and of course, Peter the live rabbit will be there, and the children will be there at the end of the show to meet him. And I used to stand in the middle of a circle, and I called it a magic circle. And I used to go round each person, giving a stroke, handing them a card with a picture of the rabbit on it, with his telephone number on it. I was clever there. And then the birthday child, I do it twice. The start with the birthday child, end. Well, it's only fair. The birthday child, it's her birthday. She's going to have 2 more strokes. Are you going to say goodbye to Peter? Bye-bye. Yeah. I never vanished the rabbit during a children's show. And someone said to me, oh, that would be fatal. They'd all say, where's it gone? Unless you had 2 rabbits and you reproduced it. I never vanished. There's lots of vanishing props, but in a cabaret show, yes, because you could reproduce it again, and it didn't really matter so much. Adults had a different view on that. Yeah.
So I know that you had a rabbit in your show. Did you also have doves in your children's show as well?
Oh, yes. Well, my idol then was Channing Pollock. When I saw him on television, and I met him in the end and had dinner with him in the end, at the Thames Television Studios years and years and years later. That was the greatest day I ever met. And he had marvelous, he was producing these doves. And I thought I'd love to do all that. And I know there was dove pans on the markets, drawer boxes that could produce. So I wasn't thinking about producing them. Well, I had no idea how it was done. Then everybody thought it was marvelous, you know. So I asked my grandfather if he'd go up to Glasgow with me on the bus so we could buy a pair of doves. Because you couldn't get them in the pet shops in Kilmanock. So what I thought we did, he heard that there was white Java doves up there, and there were £1 a guinea each. So I went up there, and one magician said to me from the Kilmanocks, as I get two, make sure they're not mating or anything like that. Make sure that the white identical, because if you're going to vanish one during the show, you can reproduce it, or if one goes ill and it's not, you've got a spare. So I've always had the two. So that's how, yeah. And I came back that day on the bus with a cage with the two doves, and then I wrote to Jack Hughes and got all sorts of trick items from him that had doves, including catching the dove in the air. But you needed an assistant for that with a net and the girl to hold the basket. You couldn't do that on your own.
Yes, I know. I know the trick
yes,
you mean.
Yes, that was good. So, yes, yes, marvelous trick. One of my favorites, because if you do it swiftly and you do it well, it's amazing that you're catching a live dove in the air. And it goes into the basket, and then you've got two. The basket produces the two, springs them up, and marvelous. But yeah, that was marvelous. Doves. I had a flair for dove magic. I loved dove magic. I'd seen Jimmy Rogers use magic on television, black and white, 9-inch screen. We had the very early Bush one, but he used pigeons. He didn't use doves. That was the first time I saw doves. Was Channing Pollock.
Yeah, Jack Hughes had some amazing props. I own a few Jack Hughes props, but I also have the volumes of Jack Hughes books that Derek Lever put out. And there's just some amazing, especially dove magic in there. It's really fascinating.
Yes, well, he was a pioneer of that. Yeah, he had Dove Through Glass, which was really not a copy, but it was an adaptation of Alice Smith's Glass Penetration, using the same principle, but Jack made it for a dove, and it was oval shaped and it stood upright. Yeah, that was good. I bought that, but that was years later. But Jack, of course, I got to know, been to his place in Colindale many times, saw him in his workshops, and of course, we haven't talked about Edwin Hooper yet, but Edwin Hooper worked for Jack as well and stayed there. So I know quite a bit about Jack, yes.
So let's just go back a bit then. So age 13, you joined the Kilmanok Magic Circle. And then a few years later, you're on TV presenting.
Well, yes, STV is Scottish television. It covers the whole of the country, not UK, but the whole of Scotland. It was fairly big. I joined the STV when I was 16, and I was a presenter on camera every day. When I used to come out of the studio, people would ask for my autograph. They would recognize me. They don't do that anymore. But the thing is, in those days, a presenter used to come on and you saw the face of the presenter dressed in the bow tie. The next program is going to be This Is Your Life. And later on, we're going to do so and so and so. Nowadays, it's a lot of voiceovers. You don't see the personalities. Also, I used to read out the football results. Airdrie 3, Kilmanok 4. You used to raise your voice a bit for the winner. Did you notice that I made Kilmanok win?
I was just going to say, Rangers, you made Kilmanok the winner there.
Rangers won, Celtic won. So that's even. Rangers won, Celtic won. So I used to do that as well. And I never did. I was interviewed on programs up there. A program called Here and Now that came on every week, doing a bit of magic. I use a Sty 7 deck, to do a mental trick. I produce a dove in a dove pan cracking the egg. But there was no children's magic. In those days, nobody did children's magic, as we call it, props made for children's magic on television.
Right.
And they still don't. They mainly use adults' magic and turn it into a child's trick. They don't come on with too many things. Turn it around, do this, do that. It's too childish for the adults are watching as well.
Yeah, and it's also it's an interactive type of entertainment, isn't it? You need the feedback from the children.
Well, that's right. I mean, I did a video once where I was demonstrating something and had to say, I pretend there's children there. What that? Did you shout? So because you normally don't do that in the show. They shout out, the ends come off your wand. Did something fall away from my wand? I can't see it. Yes. Oh, here it is. Thanks for telling me. And there's no one there.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I like the live shows. I really do. They're the best ones because you get the reaction.
So how did you get to be on TV? How did that come about?
Well, there was a piece in the newspaper. I was linked up with Haley Mills, the film star, who made at 10, 11 years of age a film called Tiger Bay in Cardiff, a murder film. And she was brilliant. She won an award for it. I was doing shows around the area in Glasgow and all that. The studios were in Glasgow. And the newspaper put the boy, the girl, and I've still got the cutting here, 2 youngsters who are going to go far in the world of show business. And then a producer from STV got me. He couldn't get Haley Mills, but he got me in there. And I've always said Haley Mills ended up as being a big star when I wasn't, a household name, and yet I haven't been a household name. But yes, that's how I got on there. But it gave me, I've been on television over 200 times in my lifetime, Blue Peter, etc., all these things. But it helped me because I was in and out of studios up there, and I knew what it was. I knew what a flow manager was, and the gallery was, and I knew all about the different angles of cameras and the lights on the cameras. It was I got into that. Yes.
So you obviously are known around the world for your publishing of books. You've published an awful lot of them, but the first book that you ever wrote that was published, I understand that was published by Supreme before you had anything to do with them.
It was called Adair's Ideas. That just smooth. It's quite a nice title, isn't it? It's almost the same letters and ideas, and it is Adair, AIs and all that. And what I did was I got to know there was such a place as Supreme Magic Company when I was in Kilmanock. One of the members, Bill Milligan, my mentor, gave me a catalogue and said, well, I want it back because there's a couple of my ideas that he's marketed. Edwin Hooper, he's called. And so write to him and he'll send you a catalogue. So I did. But, I wrote little ideas since I was about 12. Bought a typewriter when I was 12, new, a very cheap one, but a very nice little one. So I could write to magazines and rather than handwrite them. And I wrote and sent Edwin Hooper little bits and pieces now and again. And he had enough to make it into that book. And later on, still in Kilmanock, I came down to a convention where he was actually showing with a dealer stand, and my book came out on that convention, Adair's Ideas. So I saw it being published. It was only a thin book, but it was my first one. My first of 331 published books. It's a lot of books. A lot of people don't believe that, but I did put them all on my Facebook page one at a time, way back a year or so ago, to prove that there they are. And to believe it or not, I don't have one of every copy of every book, but nearly. But there we are, and they're published in different countries. But that was over years and years of writing.
And that's so that was how your writing started then. But you met up with Edwin at the Sam's convention, got chatty with him, and he
I was
offered
still
you
in Kilmanok.
he offered you a job. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. My first convention was Kilmanok Magic Circle, Kilmanok, from the Kilmanok Magic Circle, and it was called the SAMS Convention, Scottish Association Magical Societies, and it's in a different resort every year. And this year it was Greenock, and I was 14 or 15. My mother said to Bill Milligan, my mentor, look after him. He's my son. He's never been away from home, and he's going to be away for a weekend. And Bill said, yes, I'll make sure he's all right. And Moose Ganson was the guest lecturer with all his magic. Great. He even had a film screen up showing your moves on there. There was no video clips on video footage and digital stuff then. And we thought that was marvelous. I got involved there, and I went every year, and I met Edwin Hooper. I spent more time in Edwin Hooper's dealer stand, it's a separate room, than I did in any other event during the convention. And I got to know him quite well. And in fact, I entered the competition. They had the Shield competition for the best act, and I had my Dove act, entered that, and I won the Shield in 1958. And I've got the miniature still. You had to give the big one back, so I got the award there. But yes, he didn't ask me to join right away, but he did say, you've got a flair for magic dealing, because I've read bits and pieces in Oscar Oswald's Magical Digest, which is a magazine that came out every month, and Abracadabra by Goodliff, which is known as Abra. And I see that you've got different ideas that are coming out all the time, and you've written this book for me. I'll get back to you one day. And he did. And he wrote to me. We didn't have a telephone at home. We didn't have anything at home. No car, no telephone, no refrigerator, nothing like that. These were times that we didn't have these things. People take it for granted these days.
They do, indeed.
There you are. That's life.
Yeah.
And he said, "Why don't you come and join me? Because I'm looking for someone to build up the business. I've been in the business for 3 years now, and it's going very well. And let me know." So I wrote back and I said, "I'd love to join you." I didn't even ask my mother if that's all right, and I told them what sort of wage I would like. I found out, a very reasonable wage for my age group, and he accepted. And I told my mother, I said, I've got a job, my first job at about 16, 17. And she said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's a magical dealer." She said, "What's that?" I said, it's someone who works for a firm who makes tricks for magicians. She said, "That's not a real job." That's what she said. It wasn't a real job. And I said, "Well, that's what I'm going to do." And I did.
Today's sponsor is Drayson Design. Now, this is my other company. It's a company that creates websites for entertainers. And because I am an entertainer, it means that I have a really good understanding of what's required for a successful entertainment website. So I can go from taking the existing website that you already have, or starting from scratch with a brand new website and building it up to make sure that it is found in the search engines and allows your visitors to contact you easily to obviously make a booking. If you are looking for something a little bit more intricate, like an e-commerce website where you want to sell products, that is something that I can talk with you about as well. The process is very, very easy. Just get in touch with me using the details shown on screen or in the show notes. and we can have a discussion about how I can help make your website work better for you. So that's draysondesign.com. Get in touch, let's have a chat. It can't help to talk. And you never know, you may end up with a much better website that does a lot more business for you in the future. Right, that's it from me. Let's get back to hearing what Ian has to say.
And they saw me off in the railway station at Kilmanock, and I waved goodbye, Grandmother Noel, who gave the present, blowing kisses, and I had great big cases. I'd sent on stuff already in a trunk, and believe it or not, the train left Kilmarnock and then went back to Glasgow, which is further up, and then went right through the station again. That's the way it went. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they weren't there the second time, but it took me all the way down to Devon. And that was another matter.
Well, I mean, you couldn't have really moved further away, could you? You've gone all the way from Scotland all the way down to Devon, which is sort of the extreme of the United Kingdom.
I've never travelled so much in all my life. 5 different changes. Carlisle, this, Taunton, Barnstable, Bideford, 5, maybe 6, 7 different. I started off in the evening, leaving Kilmarnock, and arrived in Bideford, North Devon. Never heard of it. Thought it was Bideford because there's no dashes in between.
Yeah. But
it's called Bideford. By the Ford.
Yeah.
By the Ford. A Ford. I got to know all that, and arrived in Bideford in the morning, off the train, and I had to get the bus from Barnstable, because it didn't go into Bideford, into Bideford. I remember it well. I still remember it.
And he put you to work straight away, didn't he? Straight down to the post office.
I walked up that hill, because it's a very steep hill, it's High Street.
I've been there.
I didn't know what I was coming to. I thought it might be a joke shop as well, with fancy dress. But no, it wasn't. Because Edwin Hooper wasn't that sort of shop. He was a proper magic dealer, manufacturing his exclusive items, not buying stuff like they do today, wholesale, where a lot of the dealers sell the same things, like Silver Scepter. You can get it there, here, there, all different price. It was completely different. When I arrived, there was no sign it said Supreme Magic. It was a 3-story building, but I knew it was number 64. And I knocked at the door, and he opened the door, and Edwin said, "Hello, you're Ian." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Let me give you your cases, put them in." And he said, "You're just in time. It's a Saturday morning. The mail is going out. It's going to go out by lunchtime, because I think they close at lunchtime. So could you help me to get all the parcels down to the post office? I've got them all tied up with string, so you can put them round your neck. I've got another one." And I had to do that, and I'd travel miles, and that was my first meeting of Edwin. And then the second meeting when we came back was, "I want to show you a trick." And I opened my case. Here's my latest trick. It's called Dressing Doll. And I showed him the small book, which I bought in Woolworths, a dressing doll book, which I had faked up, and showed him the dressing doll book where the clothes vanished and then reappeared in the book with her wearing it. And he was astounded. He says, "Marvelous. We'll make that much bigger and silk screen it." And my goodness gracious, that's really good. And we did make it, and we sold 4,000 or 5,000 of these over the years, different batches of 200 or 300 at a time. And it was the best-selling trick of for years. Not so good today. It's not PC so much, the girl with the underwear. People don't, they're still around, but it's not a trick that I would do. But it was a great trick, because these sort of books were in all the shops, in Woolworths and places like that, stickers going on books, dressing the dolls, colouring books. All the children knew them. Yeah. It was a great trick.
Yeah, there are definitely tricks of their time, aren't there?
Yes, there's a lot of tricks have changed today.
Yeah. I was going to say...
tricks with Billy Bunter. They don't know who Billy Bunter is.
No.
When Hitler came out, they were doing tricks for Hitler, pictures of Hitler during the war, and the coronation of the king before the Queen took over, coronation tricks devised for them for children's shows. But people used them again at every coronation. Crown jewels, torn papers to the Union Jack, all that sort of thing came out again because it was very topical, even for the latest coronation of Prince Charles. So, yes, it was, things have changed, but I don't know if it's changed for the worse or changed. I think I got out of children's magic at the right time.
You were there for the heyday.
I think so because you have to get liability insurance. You didn't have that. You couldn't touch the you could hardly shake the hand. You mustn't dress them up to. No, it's all that sort of stuff. You touched my. There was none of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It has changed. There's no doubt about it. And I know someone called Cuddles the Clown, and he lives in America. He said, I still cuddle the children. I said, we're not allowed to do that in Britain. He said, what?
Yeah.
I said, we're hardly...
Got to be so careful. Yeah, really careful.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I quite understand. Health and safety and all that's come in and stuff like that. You've got to be careful, yes.
It's a different world. Anyone who's sort of my sort of age and sort of grew up knowing Supreme will know the address 64 High Street, Bideford, Devon, just off the top of their head. They don't they don't need to look it up. But it was a huge business. I mean, I have no idea how many lines you had, but I mean, it must be thousands that you were selling, because I remember the catalogs. The catalogs were that thick, and they were full. I mean, I've got one just up here, in fact, probably the last one that came out. But you don't see catalogs anything like that these days. Everything on the internet.
Well, you don't see catalogs full stop today.
No.
It's all on web. 10,000 items we had over the years.
Wow.
And a lot of them are manufactured by us. And, over the years, we kept bringing out new tricks, supplementary catalogs. We had the Magigram, of course, to advertise in. That's our magazine. Yes, it was tremendous, the amount. And the building, although it was 64, it was really 64, 65, but we never put a 65 on it because we bought the building, transferred the two buildings into one, 24 rooms on each one, built another area at the back, a print department as well, and a silk screen, a sort of dyeing silk area right at the very back, and a car park at the very back of that. Then we had a place at the very top of High Street, which was a furniture store, which was the size of a small Tesco's. And that was taken over as well.
I mean, it was just a huge business. It really was a factory, wasn't it?
Well, Eamon Hooper was a businessman. We had a good chemistry. I wasn't a businessman. I was an ideas man, a design man, demonstrator. I helped to manufacture things that were easy, but we got on very well. And he started that business. Someone that was a representative of a grocery firm, going around grocery shops saying, "How many do you want?" to becoming a millionaire. That's what he was when he retired. And people used to laugh at him and say, you'll never make it. That's people in the town of Bideford doing that, selling tricks to magicians. Even his father said, you'll never, he was a plumber, you'll never, why don't you be a plumber like me or something? No, he really had the drive to go ahead. And he was a good business, but he was a good performer. I mean, he was performing the coronation time. The agent was Harrods up in London, and the Queen's coronation, and he met Percy Press and Oscar Oswald, the Totem Punch and Judy. So he was well into, and Jack Hughes and all that. He met all these people up there, and that's how he came back, and then he started the firm. Do you know where the word Supreme Magic Company, how it came in? I bet you don't.
No, I don't.
It was before the firm started. He didn't have a car. He was on a bus, and he looked out the bus when it was stopped, and there was a van. It says Supreme Laundry. It was a laundry van. And Supreme, that's a good name. So it was Supreme Magic. He didn't want to call it Edwin's Magic Shop. He didn't want to make it small. He knew it was going to be big one day. So Edwin's magic dealing shop was no good. It was joke and magic. He didn't want jokes anyway. And so he wanted something that was more substantial. And that's how he came about that. And of course, it became limited later on, and it became bigger. 64 staff at one time, full time.
Wow.
People getting wages, people getting holidays, cleaners, 2 cleaners that clean the premises every day. No magic dealer today has that. They all had their own jobs. The office girls, someone was on VAT towards the end. Someone was on a computer when we had computers at the end, getting the stock control, showing where the stuff was on the shelves. We had all that. I was in a showroom, an office with an office place. Any callers that came would come in and I would demonstrate things they were wanting to see, or I would work in there writing up adverts or instruction sheets for new items.
Yeah,
these were the days.
Just amazing. I can't comprehend how big of an operation it is. Just when you look at businesses today that are magic, you look at somewhere like Alakazam that's got a really nice building, but it's tiny compared to Supreme. It's just amazing.
Well, that's right. You're right. You see, I think Alakazam sells to the public, don't they?
I don't think they want to. I think they're ideally.
Haven't they got a shop window? Have they not got a shop window?
They don't have a shop window. They're on an industrial estate, but you can walk in and they do have a showroom. So if you knew it was there, you could go in and buy something.
I see. I've never been there. Well, I've had no reason to go there because
it's beautiful. It's lovely. One of the questions I had about Supreme is a lot of the products that they sold were sort of cardboard screen printed. Which
you see, that is something I don't like hearing. Everybody says, "Oh, Supreme Magic sell nothing but cardboard." We sold every conceivable material. We had 26 leather wallets of different kinds, more than Roy Roth, who that's all he sold. We had metal workers, 2 of them, making tin tubes, metal tubes, brass nut release. We had our cabinet maker, Johnny Hawken, working on a daily basis with 3 people, spraying, sanding down, making props, wooden props, big range. Then we had the silk screen flat cardboard items, which a lot of the children's entertainers loved, because some of them were feature tricks, some of them weren't, but most of them packed flat, and you don't want to go to a venue or a show with everything that's bulky. You want things that are soft and light in weight and easy to put together.
Yeah, so
and
I think
inexpensive as well.
I think that answers my question. So I was going to say, I mean, some of these printed cardboard props are just magnificent. They're so beautiful. They're really vibrant. And my question was going to be, was that a decision made so that they are going to be light and portable and easy to carry, or was it that it wouldn't have worked in another material? Because that's something as well.
Right.
Because you had envelopes, right?
Can you imagine dressing doll being made of wood, plywood?
Yeah, no,
it's not a book anymore.
It wouldn't have worked.
You show children a book. That's not a book.
Yeah,
they can tell it's wood. I mean, there's certain things that have got to be made. And when you're showing picture cards, I mean, playing cards are made of card, aren't they?
Yeah.
Nobody says they're made of cardboard, are they? No, well, picture cards, no matter the size, they've got to be made of card. And hinge boxes that fold flat, they've got to be hinged together like that. It's too cumbersome the other way. And of course, in these days, a lot of the people that belittled them were the other dealers because they couldn't make these items. They couldn't afford to get them silk screened in the quantity that we had, and to get them made up with it was all done by stencils and squeegee right through. It wasn't photographic on a carousel like they do it today. Silk screens are dying out, really. But at the end of the day, we ended up with some very lovely looking props. And so what? They lasted 25 years. And it cost 30 shillings. Something like Farming Frolics. Get another one. Your tires don't last 30, 40 years. Get another pair. I mean, magicians, they're very mean. They expect things. It wore out 40 years later and it's worn out. I can't believe it, you know. I can't. And they've used it over and over and over again, in and out of cases, without even packing them properly, you know.
I think probably the problem that some magicians would have with these cardboard props is that they can't replace them today, because they're not made in the same way that they were, and even though they've lasted, you know, a good chunk of time, you can't now replace them easily.
Absolutely. Hal Taylor used to tell me, Ian, if you like a trick very much, buy 3 of them, because one day it'll go out of stock.
Yeah.
And he was right. Not only that, firms do go out of business generally.
Yeah.
Things that you wanted years ago, you can't get them now. You can't go to Tesco and say, you don't sell that anymore. Oh dear. No, they don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, well, that's just the way of life. You've got to buy, when you go into Lidl's one week, next week it's not there. You say to the manager, you had some lovely wallets there. Where are they? Oh, that was last week. We don't have them now. Well, that's your fault. You should have bought them at the time. But the thing is, normally you get good wear out of it if you look after something. A lot of magicians, including children's entertainers, and I'm not running them down. I was one myself. I love them. They don't look after the props. Collectors do. They put them in wrapping. They mustn't get a scratch on it. It must be mint condition. I'm not going to perform it. But that's what they're made for. They're made for performers, to entertain people, not to store away. Well, no, I've got 3 or 4 of these. Why do you need 3 or 4? Well, I'm a collector, and I must be mint condition.
I think I'm
not
little
running
bit
down collectors.
I'm a little bit in the middle, because I do like collecting some props that you know, are either very rare or something that I just want to own. But more importantly, if I've got a prop that I'm using in a show, it will be stored carefully. So, you know, the dream boxes that you take out of the bags, the
yes, the ones with the ribbons.
Yeah. So I store that in my roll-on, of which I got the plans from Supreme. Come back to that. And they go back into the original packaging that it came in. So
that's good.
When it goes back in the box, it's protected.
Good thinking. And you're talking about that trick, a Supreme trick in 1954 called Orchids for Milady. Sold one that folded out like exactly what, not made of glitter like they are now. No paper bag. You just folds flat, just like the card box that you pulled out with a ribbon and the 4 sides of the playing cards made a box. It is a Supreme item.
Yeah.
It was never credited.
It's not surprised
that it came out in Japan.
I reckon pretty much every magician ever has something that was either from Supreme or inspired by a Supreme product at some point.
The only thing is, Gordon, that you ask someone who's 25, 30, they've never heard of Supreme.
Yeah.
They don't even know it existed, because Supreme folded in 1993. And there's a lot of water has flowed under the bridge since then to 2023. A lot of people have been born. A lot of entertainers have come up, children's entertainers included. So a lot of these people don't like, or they're not interested in the history of magic. They don't read the history books about magicians of long years ago or magic dealers of the time. They're not interested in that. A lot.
No, it's a shame. It's a real shame. So I mentioned the roll-on box plans that I bought from Supreme.
Yes.
So I just for your interest, I made the roll-on box with my dad in my parents' kitchen when I was I would have been about 14 years of age, and there was an error in the plans. In fact, we figured it out after we made the mistake, but I can't remember exactly what it was. One of the sides was, I can't remember, but I still have, and I still use to this day, that exact same box. It's been around the world.
Marvelous.
It's had several bits replaced. It's been painted several times, but it's the exact same box that me and my dad made when I was 14 years of age.
And you bought the plans rather than buying the prop itself?
We bought the plans because I wanted to I wanted to know exactly how it was made, so that if I ever needed to fix it, I knew what I needed to do. But more importantly, I wanted to make sure that it was branded for me. So I wanted to make sure it was
customized to you. Customized to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, because the ones we sold were usually bright red with a flash on it, with a black top. Very good for children's shows. Terry Herbert bought one, and used it. Good for anybody, who buys a table. But if you do want something with your name sort of designed on the front and a logo with a rabbit, you've got to have that. Either you cannot start painting on top of spray paint. It doesn't work. No. Sign writers will tell you the celluloid and ordinary paint, it won't mix. It'll all bubble up. We know all that. So and what's the use of buying a prop and then changing it into something else like that?
Yes.
You can always put a banner on the front or a sign that clips on, that can be removed magnetically, or it can be clipped on. There's ways of doing it. But I know one or two magicians who used that prop, the roll-on table, the other way around. The audience saw the shelves.
Oh, okay.
It's all to do with storybooks. It was all books inside there. And she took one, Alice in Wonderland.
That's a nice idea.
And it was like, this is a little library. It's the only time I've ever seen the roll-on table back to front.
Oh, I like
it. Facing the audience.
It's a lovely idea.
Yeah, because you get the extra shelf, don't you? You can put it at the bottom.
And in fact, I made another one.
I think the top slanted.
Yeah, it did. It had a little extra bit of wood about this sort of size. It's about 2 inches high, and there's a little slots on the side pieces, and you could slot it on so that the top was angled towards the audience, so you could put cards on it and things.
Very good. I don't think that was in the plans, but it was made. The prop ones were made like that, with a slanting top, like you're saying. Actually, that's how it was supplied, and it had a black felt top, I think.
Yep.
I remember that. And you could put it up like that, and the wedge would hold the cards, the silk screen cardboard cards,
and a wooden box. Beautiful carpentry. I got to see them, and the one that my dad and I made is definitely.
Did you have a cover? Did you have a cover for yours?
Yes, I had one made.
Did you have a cover?
An upholsterer. They made me a bag. I wanted a full covered bag, so I actually put the box into the bag, so it's got a bottom to it. And then it comes up and over, so I have to carry it. I don't use the wheels to move from between. The wheels are there for moving on stage or when I'm performing, not for transporting.
We actually supplied it with a bag with a handle coming through the slot.
I remember. Yeah.
No, it wasn't very good if it was teeming down with rain outside.
Yeah.
I don't think it was waterproof, but it did not. It helped not to scratch it, or when you had it. Folded down, you had a cover on it.
Yes, and that's why I had
just
the
like
bottom
when I used to come in with
the bag with the bottom. That's why I had that.
Oh, right.
So you didn't have anything coming up.
Ah, right. And when I used to come in with a rabbit, it was in a basket, but I had a cover. I didn't want children saying there's a rabbit in there.
Yeah.
With a basket. It just looked like a basket. It didn't look like a basket. It just looked like another item I was bringing in.
Another prop.
But it really was a live rabbit.
Nice.
Because it wasn't to make its appearance till later in the show.
Wouldn't have been a surprise if they knew it was there.
No, that's right. And no one ever said, "Oh, we don't want a rabbit." By the way, when I used to say, "And there's a live rabbit in the show," oh, lovely. And when I used to go to birthday parties and look at the tea area with all the sandwiches, sometimes a birthday cake with a rabbit and a hat.
Yeah.
The mother had it made by a baker, with it holding a wand, because I mentioned the rabbit and the hat and all that. Very good.
So that was Ian Adair, a fascinating person to talk to with a host of ideas. And remember, this is only part 1. We have part 2 to come. I think what struck me most about my discussion with Ian was the dressing the doll trick and how it was of its time and how it just probably wouldn't work today. The method could be used for other tricks, so maybe we should be looking at reinventing old ideas and making them into new and modern tricks. I also found it interesting about the impact he's had on family and children's entertainers. In fact, all entertainers. There are a lot of his ideas that are either being used by these people or have been inspired by some of his ideas. And I think we owe a lot of gratitude to Ian for this. It was also very interesting learning how Supreme got its name. I had no idea of that story. So in part 2, we are going to talk to Ian about the story behind Farmyard Frolics, a favourite of children's entertainers. We're also going to understand the importance of reading and understanding trick instructions and being able to springboard off them, and also finding inspiration for new tricks during the night. Ian has lots to say, and that's why we've had to go into a second episode. Thank you so much for joining us on Face the Podcast. There are a few ways that you can actually help and contribute to the community for Face the Podcast. First of all, we have a Facebook group where we talk and discuss about episodes and family and children's entertainment in general. We also have the YouTube channel, and it would be great if you could leave some comments on the YouTube channel under the episodes, or on your favourite podcast player. The more comments and reviews we get, the more we'll be found by other children's entertainers, and this community can just grow larger and stronger. And you can also visit the website facethepodcast.com, where you can watch all the past episodes, listen to the episodes, and even vote and suggest future guests. So if you want to be a guest in a future episode, or you know someone that you think would be a great person to be a guest, then you can suggest them on the website. It's very easy to do. Just give us a few details about it and leave the rest to us. You can go and have a look, see who's already been suggested, and vote them up as well. The people with the highest votes are the people I'll be contacting first. Thank you for joining me. I'll look forward to seeing you in part 2 of Ian Adair. And until then, my name is Gordon, and this is Family and Children's Entertainers, the podcast, otherwise known as Face the Podcast. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.